Now vacation meeting to order. Tonight is June 12th, 2023. It's a committee of the whole. I'm Peter Pederini, Vice President, sitting in for John Lorenzen. May we stand for the pledge first? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, if we can have a roll call, please.
John Lorenzen, Brendan Murphy,
Here.
Peter Petrini,
Here.
Julian Phelps, John Ruggles,
Here.
Brad Stepfer,
Here.
Lisa Wooster. Here.
Oh, can I do that backwards, but that's okay. All right, we have some public comments. First, we have one that came in on the internet. I'll go ahead and read that, and then we'll check with the audience and see if we have any public comments here. Dear Board of Education of Millburn Elementary School District 24. Recently, it has been brought to my attention that the after-school activity bus does not allow students to carry more than one location for their after-school activity bus drop-off location. If this is the policy and not a misinterpretation of policy, I would like to remind the board and the leadership at Millburn School that there is a significant percentage of your students who have divorced parents, many who stay at more than one household throughout the school week. Unfortunately, divorce occurs at a 40 to 50% rate, with an average length of first marriage at 8 years for those who divorce. This puts the timeline for separation clearly in line with elementary age students. As a child adapts to splitting time and to multiple homes with two separated parents, the after-school programs at school are activities that give these children stability, opportunity to learn, an extracurricular activity, and consistent expectations of their day-to-day. This bus policy of not allowing children to have more than one drop-off location puts extra stress on the parents, who may also be adapting to a singular role and can force the elimination of the opportunity for the student because of the logistics of travel. I would like to ask the board to review the after-school activity bus policy and determine if the policy can be amended to accommodate more than one drop-off location from a financial, logistical, and safety perspective. Based on these three factors, I would also ask the board to determine whether the policy should be amended to adequately cover the needs of all students, and especially students with single parent / dual households who may benefit from allowing more than one drop-off location. As always, thank you to all board members for the time you spend serving the board. Sincerely, Justin Dietrich. This is probably a policy, or there's probably some things that the superintendent can follow up on. I would think logistically that before we need to take some huge discussion on this. How do you feel about that? Is it something that can be?
And yeah, we don't
Perhaps.
need to comment on it,
Right.
just because he.
Correct. Yeah. So I think that would probably,
I can follow up with a clarification full column.
okay, perfect. That sounds great. All right, 12, J to follow.
So I'm clear on what we do with public comments. Do we then respond to the person who had it read? You would do that after we discuss it in closed session?
It depends on the comment.
On the ask?
Yeah. It could be the board president responds, it could be I respond if it's a clarification, it could be simply direct the board's role according to policy is to direct the questions back through the appropriate channels to make sure that it's followed up. So if it's a building issue, it would go back to the building principal, or you might even go back to a teacher to follow up on, or a specific person. So it depends on the question asked and where that lines up.
But the author will get a response from us,
Yes,
from someone.
yes.
Do we have any in-house comments, public comments for tonight?
I'd like to make one more.
Here we go.
My name is Jim Devine. You've probably seen me at a couple of meetings. Got here on the 13th. I thought it was an unfortunate meeting. I was very stressed. I was very disturbed by the meeting for a lot of reasons. And the main reason was I didn't think meeting followed the quorum. Been on boards, been on corporate boards, been on school boards. To me, I thought it got out of hand. I wasn't gonna really come back and say that, but I come back and say that because I come to other meetings and, they're going pretty good. So, you know, we see an adjustment. Like I said, I've been on the board, been on school boards, archdiocese boards, been to probably about 50 board meetings in the last 2 years, not online, you know, maybe before COVID. One of the things that really interested me was the book censorship issue. And I got a chance on the 13th to walk around the building. And that was kind of cool for me because I had never been in the building. And I thought it was really good, by the way. So talked to the cleanup crew for a minute. Didn't see anything I would call out of hand. You know what I mean? Nothing. I didn't see no live wiring or, you know, whatever. So one of the things I looked at was the pictures in the front, found a few friends, you know, oh man, you guys did wear red and 50 cents. You know? So the thing that impressed me that day was the office. So whoever came up with that idea. So I remember being in school and seeing an actual author. It was a, you know, amazing thing for me when I was in school. Made me want to be a writer. So I'm trying to be constructive, and I think we're, you know, past a lot of things, but if you're a new board member, I just, or a sitting board member, I urge you to keep in mind what your responsibilities are, what your limitations are. You're not elected to a board and suddenly become a, you know, what's the word, plenipotentiary or whatever it is, you know, you're not in charge. You only have power within the confines of your board. So I would say pay attention to that type of training. Those, you know, very ugly things that here. You know, I'm not a gay rights activist or anything like that. What I would advocate for is it's the board's responsibility that every child is educated and safe. And if you are having a discussion that involves advocating a crime, which I heard, vandalism, and that crime is targeting a small set, it could be 1 or 2 students. It creates a hostile environment. And if that's the way you're thinking about things, and I think the problem's gone. But if that's the way you're thinking about things, you should really rethink being on a board. Because to me, the most important thing is the safety of every child. That was always my #1 concern. So that's about all I wanted to say today. Sorry, I'm a little, been a long day. Good job, guys. I always said you want to piss off your closest neighbors, get on the HOA. You want to get, you know, somebody angry with you in the community, sit on a school board, but it's actually a very fulfilling thing, but hell of a part-time job and not get paid.
Thank you. Thanks for your comment, Jim. Do we have any other comments from the audience tonight? And Guzniak didn't make it. He missed the wire. Okay, we're on to additional information discussion items. Do we have any additional stuff that we're adding on top of all of this?
I do not have it at this time.
No? No. All right, let's roll through information and discussion and we're on number 6. All right, we have a handful of bullet points here. And our first is the budget production to discuss and approve this of appointments, depository, treasurer, legal counsel, etc.
So this is a heads up at our next meeting. We have a bunch of things that we will be approving. They're listed there. I'm sorry, the budget was down, is down lower on the, future agenda.
Yeah.
items that get kicked down, so that's a typo. But discuss and approve appointments at depository, which we use as state bank for the lakes. The treasurer would be Dr. Johns in his role. Legal counsel would be Hodges, Louise, Eisenhammer, Roddick, and Cone. Publisher of legal notices, I'm 99% sure that's the Daily Herald that we use for our official notices. Board clerk would be Rachel Sully, and the architect of record would be Wold Architects. So those are all current people that we have, but every year we have to reappoint them.
So one thing I wanted to discuss was our legal counsel. I noticed that they're, based out of Itasca. Just wondering how we came upon choosing them.
Sure. We chose them, I did not choose them. I don't know when they were chosen, but long before my
Okay.
time. So we
Um,
have been working with their firm. They are a large firm that specializes in school districts. That's pretty much all they do is school law. School law is a little bit unique, because there's so many different layers to it. So that's one of the firms, but there's others out there that we could for sure look at. We have used other law firms for specific specialties that they would specialize in. For example, we've used Chapman and Cutler for some of our financial things when we do a bond referendum. Some of those bigger financial items, we've used Chapman and Cutler in the past. We've used other law firms for special education law to get second opinions or to work with them more directly in that area of specialized.
just
Good
doing,
question.
I haven't completed all my training yet, but reading through the, one of the books, it was saying we have the ability to put multiple firms on retainer. And personally, I like keeping our money as local as possible. Granted, they are specialists in the field. One concern I have with them only doing school law is, are we really getting what we pay for then? If we're asking them to draft a document, are they saying, oh, I put all the work in for school district 1, I'm just gonna change the name to school district 24 and charge them the full rate? Are we getting that full hour of work for them just paying 5 minutes of changing their time? That's something to consider. We're sending the money elsewhere. Lawyers do need to stay up to date with their continuing education, but just because they're specialties in school law now, they can take a Con Ed continuing education course in real estate law or corporate finance or, political finance, and that can count toward their continuing education. I just want to make sure they're staying up to date with current trends in Illinois public education. One of the issues was, the big $10,000 bill for going over, basically them telling us we have to follow the law. Why did that have to be so big? Could another lawyer have said, I'll just let you know that, yeah, I spent an hour to say that's the law, you have to follow the law. Again, I wasn't in there for their 40 hours of work or whatever, seeing what they did. Another issue that I had with when they, the previous board voted on it, the non-discrimination policy, in the medical field, I was a medic in previous 20 years ago. And the current medical guidelines are that we treat substance use disorders as mental health disorders. And they went ahead and approved our non-discrimination policy for saying somebody who uses illegal substances. Now, the mental health parity law in Illinois shows it requires healthcare providers and insurance providers to treat mental health and substance use disorders, not substance abuse, medical terminology now substance misuse, the same that they would treat any medical or surgical procedure. And the fact that they just weren't up to date on that and they were fine with just putting in somebody who uses illegal substances on there, I worry that they're not up to date with the most modern laws in the field. Again, I've never met any of these people, and if we're spending thousands of dollars on them, and they were here before you got here, do we really owe them any loyalty? Shopping around, trying to find somebody local. That's my 2 cents on them.
Anybody else have anything to add on? Or respond to that particular comment?
But, um,
What I'm hearing you say is, what are they doing to keep our business? And I think the only way we would know would be to ask. I think that's a fair question, but, not ready to start hacking away people we've been with for a long time without reason, but that's certainly something I think we could look into, but you could probably speak to it better.
I can, yes. I'd love to talk more in depth about some of your observations and concerns, and I can explain, why the $10,000 bill and what is different, and I can give you a little bit of background on some specific items. As far as using them as a firm, sure, we could look for another one, more local. There are none in this particular area. There's others that are in maybe the northern-ish suburbs. They've just moved from Arlington Heights to Itasca, so they moved a little bit further away, but yeah, their lawyers live everywhere. And they commute, and now very few people are going into the office anyway. So a local firm, I don't know that we'll get any more local than that. There are some that are in Chicago, located in Chicago. I don't know, Franzik is one of the big ones. Engler, what's their firm's name? Engler, and we use them. Engler and something. There's Kriya Bocek, which is an up and coming firm. I like them a lot too. And they used to work for Eichler. A lot of the attorneys move from the firm, not regularly, but there is movement over the course of time, for sure, so. That's a big question.
And it said, in the books, it said we can hold more than one on retainer, so we
Absolutely.
can still approve them while we shop around. But I'd definitely be interested in shopping around.
Sure.
Sounds good. Next, we have the intergovernmental agreement with the Illinois Department of Healthcare and Family Services. I assume you're speaking to this.
Yes, so we need to, I believe it was in the board packet, if not, I will get you that agreement, but it's with the, it's in order for us to get Medicaid reimbursement. So this is new this year. This is something they haven't required of us before. Now we have to have a intergovernmental agreement, and we're seeing this more and more with different, government entities that they're requiring an intergovernmental agreement, so we will need to sign that in order to get the flow of information as we have always done in the past, but now it's requiring more paperwork, so we will do it.
All right. On to the best thing that happens with boards is the joint annual conference.
So at the conference, that might be a good time to get to know different attorney firms. Our attorney firm will be there. There are other attorney firms that will be there and hosting different events, and you get to know people. That's one of their big opportunities to interact with clients as well. But for now, the reason this is on our agenda tonight is we really need to know who's going. So if you have not responded to Veronica, or if you have, great. If you haven't, wonderful. And she sent out some different opportunities. There's what's different this year is I believe there's an equity thread that starts on Thursday for training. So if you're interested in that particular training on equity, that would start on Thursday, going to Friday, and I believe even some on Saturday. Which means that she will need to get you a room on Wednesday night, starting Wednesday night. So that's why we're asking now for plans, and I know that's a long ways away, but the rooms go quick. And some people last year were a little disappointed in their location because they registered late. Might have to cross Michigan Avenue to get to the site. So want to make sure we register for that on time. You don't have to do those trainings by all means. Don't have to do them. There's different ones, and she sent out all that information. There's some on Friday, so you can go down Thursday night and go all day Friday to a training. That's a good one if you have to do all of your board trainings, that gets them all done in one day.
I did that like 2 years ago when I came on, went down Thursday night, Friday, you knock out, it's a long day. But boom, you're done with everything for the board, which is great, and then you get together with them, you go back to your room, fill out, relax, change, and then we go out, we have our dinners and all those other functions, but. All of the breakout sessions, all the presentations they're really good, it's really worthwhile going to this stuff. So
Are
I-
those the trainings that we do online?
Yeah, some
Would
of
they
them are.
offer them there, like
Yeah.
in person?
Yeah, there's one 8-hour one, which I forgot what it was about, just like overall being on the board, I believe, like kind of expectations, this, that. And just to get that out of the way is great. And not many people are down there Friday morning anyway, so kind of a decent thing.
Well, we would have had to complete that before this conference though, right?
The OMA,
Oh,
So
just the
there's
open
certain-
meetings, oh, okay.
so there's certain, that's a good question. I was just gonna say,
Okay.
make sure you get your Open Meetings Act training, because you have to do that within 90 days of your
Yeah.
election, I believe. Seating. But there's other trainings that are required in the first year. Like maximum.
Yeah.
So,
Or
so,
before, like before, I think, I'm sorry, before evaluation, before an evaluation cycle, if we were to rep somebody next year, you have to, the board has to be trained on the evaluations. There's a whole list of them now, and they keep adding every year.
I didn't see the thing from Veronica about, separate workshops.
Okay.
But you said that there was something on Thursday that we would have to, and so this form only has Friday focus.
It's in the board.
Okay,
The
okay.
top one,
Top one is Thursday here.
It's this thing.
Oh, okay, that says, okay,
If I were-
Yeah, so you
I-
know
I-
Wednesday.
thank you,
registration.
thank you. I understand now.
Yeah, but the other 90-day deal, that's just online.
Yeah.
Right, that one's all online, the first 90
The Open
days.
Meetings Act,
Yeah, open meetings act.
I think that one's pretty quick.
This is fun, go, you should go, it's a lot of fun and you learn a ton. Anything else? Triple I? Okay, resolution authorizing transfer of interest.
Okay, so, we have a resolution that would like the board to approve at the next board meeting, and we do this every year where we transfer interest from one fund to another. So a fund, has cash that we hold in the bank during the year, and our bank has what's called a, sweep, it's a sweep account, but it's a, max savings, max safe account. I don't know if any of you have those or have heard of them, but the max safe account is pumping out some pretty good interest these days, between 4 and 5% interest on a daily basis. And so that money that we hold in cash reserve throughout the year in our funds, we get interest on that. And that interest is designated in each fund. So we have, for example, in the Ed Fund, we have 9 funds, and in the Ed Fund, which is our big one, we're carrying a certain amount of cash because we have payroll. And then we have, and transportation carry a certain amount of cash and so on and so forth. So each of those funds is generating interest. There are certain rules about transferring from transportation to Ed Fund, for example, or from capital projects to Ed Fund. Some funds you can transfer to, some you can't, but interest you can put in any fund. So this is what we're doing. We're putting all of that interest money into our Ed Fund. And eventually that interest money plus some more is going to be going back into our debt service fund to take care of next year's abatement for the property tax relief grant. So I know it's kind of an interesting shell game. It all ends up, it's actually more transparent to do it this way, but somewhat confusing to explain. So you're taking pieces of, because of the rules of what can be and spent out of and put into certain funds, we have to make sure that we can cover our abatement in the debt. Property tax relief fund, which we abated out of debt service next year. So if you recall, some of you were not on the boards, you may not. So this year we applied it and were granted a property tax relief grant from the state of Illinois. I think this might be the best policy out of Springfield I've ever seen. It actually helps and does what it's intended to do, which is help those overtaxed districts shift some of the burden back onto the state to balance it out a little bit. Yeah, it's working really well. Lakes has done it. They actually qualified twice for it while it was getting going. And, now Millburn is finally in the queue. We've moved up to that point last year where we were eligible for it. So we're getting it, which means that we have to abate 800 and change, 800,000 back to taxpayers. This year, that's why our bill didn't go up quite as much, even though we had that huge balloon payment on our mortgage or ramp. We saw almost, it wasn't quite flat, but almost a flat payment for most of us. It's on the Millburn side. So that helped that, and then next year we'll have a double down effect where that, our debt service or our mortgage payment will be done, and we're going to abate back another $800,000 in addition to that. So that's a significant amount of money. And I know I calculated that all out through the board in January when we talked about that. You remember what it was on a $300,000 market value home? $100 and some dollars.
It was-
This year?
Yeah, like, I thought it was just under $200. or
Just under
something.
$200-ish,
It was right around there.
which is what we're giving back this year for that. But then, so the state, then we say, okay, we're giving back that $800,000, and then the state says, "Well, we're gonna replace it, not quite all of it. About 700,000. And change. So I think there's $174,000 or $180,000 difference that the district would lose this year. Actually, for next year, FY 24. We have to make up that difference. And we have to have money in an account to give back to taxpayers, even though we've got the cash from the state. I don't know, explain that.
That was great.
Yeah, because you've heard it a few times,
Yeah.
you saw it all over, of course, it's,
So let me make this more confusing.
yeah,
The $100,000, my first question would be, we didn't anticipate, I assume, 100,000, but we were anticipating something, so this is probably bigger than we had budgeted for. Or what is this budgeted for, or is this just,
the interest that we're gaining through this. This is part of what, yeah, correct, on both counts. We did not budget for it, and it is much larger than we expected.
okay, so this is, well, I hate to say extra money that we have.
Right.
That we didn't budget for, and the suggestion then is to put it into the abatement fund because we're paying it back 800,000 to the community. We're only getting 700,000 back from the state. This will make up the difference between the 700 and the 800,000,
Yes,
approximately.
approximately. That's
Okay.
one way.
So my next question would be, when we give that $800,000 back, because you're right, interest rates are really good right now.
Yeah.
If you have them.
Yeah.
Not if you, for your mortgage, obviously, and that's okay. When do we pay that money back? Or are we gonna collect interest again on that 800,000 before it's dispersed? Because that would be more money then. How's that work? Or,
We've already lost the
So that's
800,
gone.
we never got. it. Because we abated it, so we lowered what we took from tax
okay,
this spring. already. So the bills that we already got in the mail,
that money's already been done.
that's no, we don't see that coming.
Okay.
But we did get the 700 and some thousand from the state already. So
And the
I
100
looked at our balance in the ed fund the other day. Why? We make a mistake, but that's because there's an extra $700,000 in there that hit us. I didn't know they were gonna pay it so quick. Awesome.
No, I think it's a great idea to put that $100,000 in there, and I would love to do it, but my question then would be, who decided to put $100,000 back? Is that something that's budgeted? Because we didn't know it was in the budget. So when the 100,000 goes to the abatement account, is that something that we as a board did last year? Or is that something that Carly does because it's under a certain amount of money? Okay, I can ask you offline.
Yeah.
Nothing that I need to say about that.
That's what we're talking about right now.
I mean, that's what we're
So the
authorizing
board
right
has to
now.
authorize that.
Just putting 100,000 in there.
Yes.
Okay, so
To
we
get the
are,
100,000.
so the board is doing.
Yes, the
Okay.
board is, yeah, we're not.
Okay.
Randomly transferring money.
Okay.
That's why it's more transparent,
Yes.
even though sometimes the more information you give, the more confusing it is. Sometimes.
Right.
But it's all
It makes sense to do it.
Yeah. because we have to do it that way. So you can track, the money came from X and went to here and then back to here. It's going back to the same account, in fact,
Okay.
but that's how it has to be done.
That document,
Got a document.
Okay, the treasurer surety bond.
So, Dr. Johns is our current treasurer, and because he has access to money and access to our accounts, we have to have a surety bond on that money. It's for $6 million. And he's bonded for 25% of that, which is 1 point something. Then that'll be at the next meeting, and we should have that in there.
Okay, safety audit.
So we got a quote for a safety audit, and I'd like to know if the board wants to move forward with that or look at other options or has any questions about it. It's for $14,000 to look at both schools and do a comprehensive safety audit of our policies, of our procedures, of our physical space, where weaknesses, where strengths for safety. And more than just school shooter, this goes into, safety as far as that. He's gonna look at possible loss, and we've had losses in the past. This year we had some losses. Somebody cut off the catalytic converter on one of our trucks, both of our trucks actually. And so things like that. What we can possibly do. He talks about just a variety of.
So that's just an audit. They're not actually, doing anything. They're
They will
telling
not
us what
do
we
it,
are.
right, correct. They will not do anything and they will not sell us anything.
That's a lot of money for just telling us what we're doing wrong, I think. So,
What's the, have you checked the market on this, on these
Yep,
audits?
so Gurney 56 had one and they had 4 buildings that double the buildings. Theirs was over 20,000 and that was a nationally known person.
and so I didn't see, that was that in the board packet from the quote from these people or?
I think I sent it with my board notes.
Okay,
last
okay.
Friday. I
And
will
he's,
double check to make sure that you have that information.
he's a local guy.
Yep. What I like about, and again, it is a lot of money. My perspective is he's gonna be spending a lot of time too. But out of $14,000, that's up to the board to decide.
'Cause that's,
We were gonna spend, so we got a quote on safety glass. I'm just gonna use this one example. On all the first floor windows. So you put, it's a 3M film, or there's other companies that make different types of film that you put on the glass, which we have on our main entrances already, one layer. But you put this glass on it, what it does is instead of somebody taking a shot at the window and having it just shatter and fall to the ground and open up, it takes significantly more time, minutes more for sure, to get through that glass because it's sticky and it holds it together. And they really have to chop away at it to get through that glass. So it's not bulletproof. Bullets can go through, but it doesn't shatter it when it's shot. So we looked at doing it on the first floor around every window on the first floor. Because it wouldn't make sense. At both buildings. Maybe that's a good way to spend money. Maybe it's not the highest priority. For example, that would be about $60,000-$70,000. Which
but that's an actual
that
thing, a product we're getting.
product we're getting, but what about so that's one product. But is that the best deterrent? Is that the best way to spend it?
you know, at the $14,000 being essentially a quarter of a teacher's salary, you know, are we getting essentially 3 months of work out of him for this audit, or how long does he, how much time is he investing in it?
This sounds pretty, I mean, it sounds like it'd be a pretty thorough thing. I would hope if
But
he's
that's the-
looking at
that's the
everything, right?
How many different companies or individuals in the area do this?
I don't know anybody in our area, I just know the other national firm that does it. And I know there are more people, so I can go back and get more quotes, and I can say, hey, you're high, and we'd like to look at more quotes if the board wants to do that, that's, okay with
See
me.
a couple, yeah, just to see if that's. You know, I know you said Gurney
Turning 56.
paid about twice as much, but they're twice as big.
And their buildings are also larger. right?
No, they're small.
Okay, okay.
But, yeah, I'd like to, you know, I have no idea whether this is a good price or not.
Right, and that's why I asked her. What do you think?
Because he's gonna get it done in a week, and that's a lot of money for a week work, but if he's spending, you know, looking at traffic patterns and observing, you know, the community coming and going, and, you know, just investing, you know, how much time and stuff is invested.
Definitely doesn't hurt to get quotes. I assume you did get quotes there.
And is there any, reputation on any of these guys? You mean the two national guys?
The national guy, yes, I know of him, he's national, on the news a lot.
But does that mean?
Sounds expensive.
Yeah.
It's like cost me.
Yeah, that doesn't mean he's gonna pay attention.
Totally.
I actually like the local better, based on the feedback that I got.
Now, are all the schools around doing this? Is this like a?
No, people are asked, I just got asked the other day, who's doing it?
Right,
So
I think this falls,
I know Gurney 56 has, I don't know who else has in our immediate feeder districts. I think we might be the next up. I don't think anybody else has done it yet, but I know Highland Park has done it. They spent way more money on this. I know, like, this gentleman is in Lake Forest and he does this. This is his job in Lake Forest. And Deerfield in that area, so they've done it.
well, that would speak to his credibility. You know, I would think, if he's being hired by a Highland Park or a Deerfield or some of these wealthier districts, then that gives him a bit of credibility in my mind, at least. You know, why would they go with him otherwise, right?
Sort of experience that you up for this.
Yeah.
Job, that-
Well, yeah, like
Yeah,
what's his background and whatever, what did he do? Cause it's not always about time, it's often about expertise.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh yeah, 14 grand's a lot, but if this guy really knows his stuff, then. This is almost like that middle step between getting the safety officer type of deal, I feel like.
This
That
important
one's
topic,
over
Tom.
100K or whatever, and maybe this identifies some things that we can do, would be pretty good, I would think.
Are the reports that were provided to other school districts proprietary? Can we request from the other districts, say, hey, can we see what your audit showed and see what boxes we can check off the list and do proactively?
But without getting any expertise.
Well, you know, just as something to compare by, see like, did they feel they got a good value out of it?
Be nice to know what kind of things they sold.
Comment.
I assume part of it's gotta be customized anyway to a different building.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure most of it is, but.
and location and all of that stuff.
I
Right, we're in the
wouldn't
middle of
wanna
a
try to swipe
cornfield.
someone's work anyway, but,
But,
that's good.
no, but I think it's better, it's a great way to evaluate his work. You
I
know,
agree.
how the report looks and how understandable it is and, you know, you could really judge, the quality of the work, I think, from somebody else's.
So I can, I've been invited to go to a district and I can ask around the district. They won't let those reports leave the office for good reasons, but,
and once this is completed, do we have the funds to actually do any of the suggestions?
Oh, yeah.
You do?
So here's what I anticipate is gonna happen. There's going to be some things that are gonna be cost money, and then there's gonna be other things that don't cost money that we should do better. For example, looking at our emergency plan, we do not currently have, nor have we practiced the reunification process. So let's say a disaster happens at Millburn Elementary, where do you go pick up your kids? Do you guys know? No.
No.
I do, but do you guys don't know? And do the teachers know, and do, what's our process for that? Have we practiced that? Have we, practiced calling in our bus drivers in the middle of the day? I have worked through it in my head, but that doesn't mean a whole lot. What if I'm one of the first ones taken down? Where's our replication? Where's our redundancy? So thinking through some of those things are gonna be what he's going to come back and say. Which, yes, a lot of this I already know,
But not all of it.
but not all,
Right.
maybe not all of it. And I'd like to know, is it worth it? So we had a conversation, he's been here already. In order to give a quote, we spent an hour in each building walking. So we had a conversation about the safety glass. He said, well, you can put safety glass on the windows on the first floor, but no one has ever come through a window. So is that worth your money, or would you rather spend it somewhere else? You can buy the locks. Every time there's a school shooting, there's locks, there's proprietary locks that go on classroom doors, and some of them are pretty slick that you can slam the door shut. Or you can rekey them and make them lock on that you can lock from the inside, which most of ours have. Or there's other things that you can do that are a little more cost effective. So that's part of that process, but what I liked about having someone else do it, there's someone else that can help me prioritize which ones should do first, which one's the biggest, not bang for your dollar necessarily, but what's the most effective. Metal detectors, there's districts who spend just gobs of money on metal detectors, they do absolutely nothing, but they make some people uncomfortable, and they make other people feel safe. But they're not gonna stop anybody from coming in and harming children. It just doesn't make sense. You can have, we have all kinds of times during our school day where children are more vulnerable to somebody doing harm from the outside or even from the inside. So, but are we gonna give up those times? Are we gonna give up recess? Can we ever have PE outside? There's certain, okay, you can button it up, but are you going to button it up so much that we're reducing
That's a prison.
what
Yeah,
we
that's
wanna-
not-
what we want to accomplish with kids, so there's that balance. But, okay, if we are gonna go outside,
Mhm.
what can we do to minimize, and mitigate risk? Does that make?
Yeah.
a bit of sense?
Well, one thing I just thought of with the safety glass, I know that will be a discussion for another time, but, what if then, the students are trying to flee and now they can't get out that window, like,
That was
who's
my
at the door? Like, yeah,
Good question.
like, they can't take their skateboard or whatever and bust the
Mhm.
window out, so.
Right, and what I didn't think about, what the safety glass guy told me, is if you turn around and look at that door right there. So the classroom doors are locked. No one has ever shot through a window like that. That would take forever to get in a locked door. But if you shoot the pane of glass out, you can just reach in and put the handle. So should we put safety glass on just that pane, on all the classrooms? That counts. Those are my questions that I would like someone other than myself.
That's where the guy earns his money, so that's good.
Yeah,
Turn the door around.
Well, I think,
It's an out.
enclosed spaces, the door has to open out.
No, I mean.
The door.
Put the handle on the other side.
Oh, God, I got you, guys.
See, there's always a solution.
Yep, yep,
That's
yep.
it.
That might only cost, no, it's probably cheaper to put the same glass on.
All right, let's move on to salary rates for non-union members.
So I will get, so just to be clear on my task,
Yes,
more quotes.
more quotes, correct.
And reviews from the other districts, how they feel. Do they feel they got a good value of it? And if you or some of us are allowed to access the reports, if they have a proprietary, you know, like, yeah, I know they can't
I
give
am
us
at one
copies.
district.
What's it?
I am at one district,
Okay,
as long as I don't leave them. With. I'm gonna let me.
You're stuck there forever.
Okay, sorry. Thanks.
No problem at all. Okay, salary rates for non-union members.
Okay, that's on our agenda, but that is going to be discussed in closed session.
Right. Okay, so that gets pushed. All right, now the MOU for summer school staff.
So
and I
you
think
have the
that's-
MOU.
Yeah, in front of
In
us.
front of you, that is something that we have needed to do the last 2 years because in our contract, we don't have a summer school stipend or any way to pay summer teachers for summer school. And we have funded through the grant, through the ESSER's 3 grant, we're funding our summer school program. We did last summer and we will this summer as well. And so we need a mechanism to document how we're paying our staff for the summer school program, and this does it. It's a memorandum of understanding because we don't want to open up the contract to renegotiate the whole contract. This is just an agreement on this particular item on this particular time for this particular purpose.
so these are teachers who are already employed by the school district.
Some of them,
Okay,
most of them,
okay,
but they could, some of them could be bus drivers or other people who paraprofessionals who are teaching a class. And we have had in the past, people from other districts come in when we needed somebody, but we prioritize.
so then, you know, the question arises with benefits, so we then. Would we be obligated to pay benefits to the people who come from outside? So I'm only seeing a dollar rate on here.
Well, they won't qualify for any medical, we'd have to pay whatever there. If they qualify for TRS or, we'd have to pay that.
Good. Okay, student academic performance report.
All right.
That's in front of us too, I think.
Did not.
No, how do we do?
Sure that, like, you can see this. Okay. So I'm gonna give a brief overview. Thank you to Mr. Jorgensen for putting this slideshow together. Some of this we've shared with the staff already. Mr. Walshire. Did I say Mr. Jorgensen? I was looking at Mr.
Yeah.
Jorgensen. I meant Mr. Walshire. We're putting the slides together and I added on some additional information, so. We'll go through this relatively quickly and then I can send it out to the board and digest this. Or if you have questions tonight, that's great too. Our goals for the year, just as a reminder, of last summer, we approved these goals. It was to show growth on NWEA or MAP in reading and math. And our goals were to increase from 52.75 to 55% as an indicator on our growth rate in ELA, and then from 41 to 40, or in math, I'm sorry, and then 41 to 46 in reading. We also had another goal on building culture and climate, building connections with our community. We felt coming out of COVID, we needed to reconnect And, but I'm gonna focus on the academic piece. of that. Growth will lead to achievement. This makes a lot of sense. If our rate of growth is higher than average, our students are going to continue to excel and grow faster than the average children across the nation. Also, when we look at a growth, an average growth of all of our students, we're not just focused on the students who are below the 34th percentile or the students who are above the 67th percentile, which above the 67th percentile-ish is what the state deems as college ready, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Just in general, that's what that target is. So on the state test, when the state says, oh, certain percentage of kids meet or exceed the state test, that means that translates here to 67th percentile or above. That's a pretty high standard for
Statewide.
statewide. Okay. So our district average, move this around a little bit. Growth percentile last year at elementary was 45%. This is our district total. Elementary was a little bit lower than that in math, and for reading, our district average was 41 and elementary was a little slightly higher. ELA. You can see here, if we want to get into this above average growth, we have to be in the 61st percentile or above. So last year we were in the average range and we're shooting to be above average. For growth rate. Achievement is another story, but we're talking, we really want to measure it. So at Millburn Elementary, 22-23, that's this current year, 61st percentile in math. Last year, we were in the 44th percentile. That's huge.
That's a huge jump.
That's great news for this year. That's awesome. Reading growth, 60.8%. And last year was 42.8%. So that's huge growth in both reading and math at the elementary school. So that's great news. Which means our goal was to hit the 46th percentile as a district average, and we hit 48%. Math, our goal was to hit 55 and we hit 66 as a district. So that's some great growth. We met our goals. And short stories, we met them, and in math, we blew them away. So there's some other points I'm just gonna highlight. Our goals were based on math scores. So that's the tests that the kids take in the fall and the spring. They take one day to do math, one day to do ELA in the fall, and then they do it again in the winter, and then they do it again in the spring. And it should take the kids about 40 minutes. Some kids take 4 hours. They want to. Usually that's our higher achieving kids because they can't stand getting an answer wrong. And by the nature of this test, you have to get an answer wrong eventually to level out. In fact, you should get 50% of it.
And this is overall growth.
This is overall.
But if we really wanted to get into the weeds on it, we could actually kind of break it down like, because if the higher end kids were 80% growth and the lower were 20,
Correct.
See what I'm saying?
Yep.
Do we get into that or?
You can. I can show you whatever you want.
I'll do that.
Yep.
I'd be
Yep.
interested in that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we're doing. That's what actually elementary did today. Did you guys get into that a little bit?
A little bit.
A little bit. But that's what I do is say, okay, we look at all different facets, so break it out in different ways. I can explain that. Yeah, this is the overall work at the board level. We're hitting the big picture, the overall. And then we go down deeper to say, okay, who's having success here? And we can talk about that a little bit too. How do we get other people to match that? This now the IAR is the Illinois Assessment of Readiness. That's our state test. Percent meeting and exceeding. Again, that aligns about to the 67th percentile. Our kids have to hit 67th percentile-ish, somewhere in there on math in order to have a chance to meet or exceed on the state test. Not a perfect number, but that's pretty, tends to be pretty close. So last year we were about 45%. This year we're at 50%. Pretty good jump. If we did that jump every year, we would be. ELA, we were at 45%. This year, 54%. Individual team celebrations, kindergarten. They had the highest achievement level. So now we're talking about an achievement level. Now we're gonna look at different groups and how they did. And positives and some of the not so much. These are all positives. First grade had the highest growth in math in the elementary school, 82nd percentile growth. So whatever first grade's doing in math, working really well. Second grade growth in ELA math, 92nd percentile growth. That is really tough to pull off. They worked really hard in reading this year, which is key at that grade level, especially. Third grade, highest percent of meeting or succeeding in math. And the IAR in the district 2 years in a row. So they have gotten their kids up to a very high level in ELA and math. Fourth grade, highest growth in ELA on the IAR in the building. Third grade when they were in third grade, they were at 50% meeting and exceeding. This year, that same group is at 62% meeting and exceeding. That is awesome. Again, fifth grade had the highest jump in the district, 17 points. Meeting exceeding in from third grade, that should read from fourth to fifth. Sorry. That's amazing jump. Well, sixth grade, we jumped into math on ELA from the prior year. We went from 46% to 62% on the IAR. In math, that's huge. And then fall to spring growth, they were in the 98th percentile for growth. That's amazing. Double-digit growth in ELA again. They grew 12 points, seventh grade from 6th to 7th. The IER on ELA. That should be 7. And eighth grade exceeded the growth goal in math and increased 8 points on the Illinois Assessment of Readiness. So there's good things. Each grade level really did well and hit some high points. This is a summary graph that I look at every year. So this is, now we're looking at achievement, not growth. So this is our ELA scores over time, the average, and this is on the state test. So you can see 2020 was a COVID year where we didn't have a test. You can see we're in 19, we're starting to creep up on average and then down, and now we're starting to come back down. Especially in ELA, we're recovering quickly, and a lot of that's due to the elementary school numbers in ELA that really rolling in ELA, and the middle school is really rolling.
Really took a beating after COVID.
Yeah. I would expect that, and I would hope that that was the case to some degree. Otherwise, why are we spending the money that we're doing on school if we can learn that well at home? So this is showing me that school is valuable and we need the kids to be in school. And there's also value added for kids being in school.
So looking at this, we're back to where we were pre-COVID on ELA and just about there.
Correct. Getting there.
Yeah.
Close. Math is lagging a little bit, but that makes sense. We're seeing that kids have, depending on what, and I can show you on a different graph, depending on the year that they missed. They're struggling a little bit in math because of builds. We're really having to go back and fill in a lot, so our staff is working very hard to try and fill in those gaps along the way. And as we do that, that's gonna start to jump, but it's gonna take some time to cover. For sure. As long as the trend keeps going in the right direction. But this also shows, we're looking at our math curriculum and we're noticing some gaps, whoops. We're noticing some gaps in our math curriculum, at the elementary level. Particularly that it's not rigorous enough in the right areas and consistent enough. So we're looking at our curriculum to say, okay, what do we need to do to shift? So that part of our next, would be our next major adoption. And we just adopted ELA. I want to say 2019. So we started to adopt our elementary ELA curriculum. Is that right? 2018? It's right before COVID. So we're just getting into it. So now we're really getting solid on our ELA, especially in the K-5. And it shows. This is on our map tests again, so just another measure. Hoping that, I think our ELA, what this is showing too is that our map and park don't necessarily align perfectly. Our curriculum is more focused on the IAR results. It should be, because that's more standards aligned to what the current standards are. So as we increase our alignment to the standards, we're going to see the IAR scores go up, and map growth is going to bounce around a bit. Because it's measuring different things. Neither one of them are bad. They're just different. But we will track this. These are some of the indicators that we look at to see where they're headed. When we're comparing nationally, this is
math.
math.
But I noticed that typically on math, it looks like ELA is higher than math, and on the other ones, typically math was higher than ELA. Right.
Different assessments, different days, different. So when we talk about where we are nationally, if you think about, we have over 50% of our kids, this is a pretty rigorous measure. This is the number of kids above the 60th percentile. So when we look at that bell-shaped curve, it's skewed way to the right. If you're in the statistics analysis of this, which means that our average is about a half of the standard deviation above it. Right? It's significant. That's not achievement. But I want to focus on growth because that's going to get us in the right direction. So if every kid's growing, we're going to continue to not maintain, but we're going to continue to creep up and have every student be successful. So we're working.
Great.
Always good news.
Yeah.
It's always interesting looking at these because you're like, what?
Well, if we can replicate some of these huge jumps, I mean, that's the big one.
Yeah, our teachers do a great job, and they always do, but they're really working hard. Trying to get the kids where they need to be, maintain that high excellence in education.
Okay, on to the Johnson Control contract.
So the Johnson Control contract was in your board packet. That's for a project that have been trying to do for the last 2 years to get our systems automated in the oldest section of the building. We're still running on a pneumatic control system, which is for these days ancient. There's actually a compressor running right now in the boiler room that keeps those controls going. Which is fine, but there's a lot better ways to do that that are more efficient now. So we're using some of our grant money to do that because we can for HVAC purposes. Improving air quality.
And we're amending a previous contract that was already,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this is the amendment. So our attorney, we give them a contract, then our attorney reviews the contract, and the attorney says, no. Like, we would rather have these protections in place, so the amendment is more protections. Okay,
All right, financial check-in.
so just a brief update on our finances, we're doing very well this year. Excuse me, doing better than I thought. Part of it is because of what we talked about earlier, the unexpected increase in interest rates, which gives us some cash, so that helps a lot. The other part of it, some of our grant money that we're still spending, so we're doing okay. We're running at just slightly ahead of where we were last year, which is great, so we will end on a positive note. I was a little bit worried that we were gonna actually have a deficit budget this year, but it looks like this year and next year, should things stay consistent, we will also not have a deficit budget next year. By the next board meeting, we will have projections for you so that you can see how it all works out and talk about assumptions, because there are so many different moving parts in a budget. If we're 1% off, for Millburn, it's a lot. It makes a big difference, so. We're usually within 2 or 3%. Great. Try, that's where we try.
Good deal. District goals to tackle.
District goals to tackle. I would like to propose or have the board think about our overall district goals in general remaining the same. I don't know, prior to this year, our goal had been pretty much the same since I've been superintendent, with a couple of different variations to it, but basically we want to see our kids growing and reading. That's our big goals that we're always gonna have in place. The only difference before was they were on achievement basis. At least for the last 7 years, I believe, they've been on an achievement level, so we want to see, so here's the line, this is the 67th percentile. We want to see how many kids can jump over that line. We're pushing all these kids who are right under the line, over the line, and keeping these kids above. But it doesn't really address the kids below, well below that may never be able to achieve that level. And it doesn't really address the kids who are already above the line in growth. So we said, okay, if we want to look at something that addresses all kids, at least in our goals, that will still accomplish the achievement, let's just look at our average growth index. We want all of our kids to be growing at a higher rate than that, on average. I would like to keep that moving forward. I don't see how that can ever change significantly, other than maybe we want to focus on it. The strategies, however, on how to do that, that's the next conversation. And that's more with the staff, teachers, input, looking at, going deep into that data, going, okay, where do we need help? Where do we need to shore up support? Where do we need training? Where do we need staffing? And then when we come back to the board, we say, okay, this is what we found out. We would like to add a math specialist at the elementary school. I'm just using that as an example. Please don't think I had that just came out now. We're not getting that. No. We might say that, or we might say, we'd really like to look at our math curriculum because we have inconsistent resources that we're using from teacher to teacher across grade levels. How can we be more consistent? Well, let's spend some money purchasing materials rather than have teachers creating their own lessons every day. Maybe that's part of the solution. Then we go back to the board and say, this is what we think, would you approve the money for us to do? But this big goal. That's what we're all trying to accomplish. Then the strategies go out of that. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
For now, you don't have to agree. It's just thinking about it. We'll have much more conversation over the summer.
Okay, BOE meeting AV update. And broadcasting our meetings.
We talked about broadcasting our meetings and there's been some questions about the clarity of the sound and not being able to hear. So I was tasked with going back to check out different options. There is an option available. We can get an owl just like this, but the upgrade, the Owl 3. The Owl 3 has a speaker extension that can that can go and extend your range. This is supposed to do up to 18 feet. Probably a little bit weak on that, but it's supposed to do 18 feet, but with the extension, you can do 20-some feet and it'll cover everything. So it will cost us under $2,000 to do that. I'm gonna suggest that we try to do that if the board wants to broadcast meetings and continue that. We do use these for conference meetings already. So we don't have one at the middle school. We would move this one over to the middle school, keep this one here, so it's not gonna be obsolete. The owl is not endangered species. That makes sense. Just not.
Yeah. All right, our final public school calendar as entered in ISB and bylaws.
So this is our final calendar that we approved. It's attached. You can look at it. It's the days we already did. If we have emergency days, we have to amend it and then approve it again. We're just approving the final calendar. That'll be on the next board meeting, and then I hit the button at the state level and it's all good.
And consolidated district plans.
Same thing. It's connected up on the net or on the board agenda. Again, this is something we have to do every year. We have to fill out all this information about how we want to get our title funding from the state through the federal government. So it's Title I funding, Title II funding. Title I funding is for at-risk students. Title II funding is for staff development. The Title IV funds, what we do typically with that is put it into Title II because it's not enough money to do anything, but it does help with staff development monies. So when we bring in a speaker or consultant for staff development, we use those grant funds. There's other grants available as well, but that's the gist of it. It's all there.
Excellent.
We will approve that at the next.
All right, on to future agenda items. We have District 117 strategic planning presentation.
So, if the board is okay with it, and President, Vice President are okay with it, there's a gentleman coming in next week to present District 117 strategic plan and the results of that, and what they just did. I think it would be helpful for us to hear what they did, because we've talked about doing a strategic plan process with our community again next year. It'd be fun to hear how theirs went. They just did it this spring. And talk about that process and the results.
How much time is he looking for? 10
I'm,
minutes,
yeah.
30 minutes?
No.
Okay.
Pretty quick one.
Yeah.
Well, good.
Then, well,
That makes sense. I like that idea. All right, what about our budget projections now? These are down here.
So we're gonna do that. At the next meeting, we'll have the budget projections. We did our initial projection, and the initial one is always the worst, because put in everything that you think is gonna happen or would like to happen, and then that graph goes
Yeah.
3 years, but it's assumption upon assumption, it multiplies. So I only look at the next couple of years to make sure that we're gonna be solvent without having to do too much program adjustments or staffing adjustments, or spending freezes, etc. So we're looking pretty good
Good.
for now.
All right, you have a report for us, Jason?
We graduated 8th grade last week. That went very well, very efficient. I think it was Mr. Jorgensen's shortest one ever, 34 minutes. Shorter.
Yeah.
Yeah, real short,
35 minutes?
35 minutes.
It was outside.
Outside.
We started right on time.
No.
Not even for the superintendent.
35.
Oh, cool.
It was hot, so 35 minutes, I guess, was good.
It was great. No, it was great. It went very well. It was very fun. We had, elementary teacher leaders met today, to do some planning, some data diving, digging for next year. So they're working on what are those strategies, where are we at? What do we need to do as a staff to improve? Summer school started today, went very smoothly. I didn't hear too much chatter and it was amazing. I thought it was great. Ms. Burton has done a great job putting that together, and I don't know how many kids we have, but there's quite a few. We're well over 100.
Really?
That's pretty
That's
good.
great.
Pretty good chunk. Pretty good fun classes too.
That's
And
it.
that's it. That's all.
All right, guys, girls, anything?
I went to the CEDAW quarterly meeting last week. Saw a lot of people that I'd never seen before because it was all the different representative districts. Saw a student who benefits from the program. Seeing, what the resources are going to. Dealing with other issues regarding the CEDAW. One parent's upset that they can't send their child is no longer able to go to a CEDAW facility because their home school district is not a CEDAW district. CEDAW just doesn't have the funding to accept everybody if their home school district doesn't choose to be a member. And, that's the break sometimes when you don't have it in the budget. And so overall, I think it's gonna be a good experience for me, seeing people and meeting, new faces in the community. For our health insurance, we have Blue Cross Blue Shield, is that correct?
Melbourne?
Yes.
Correct.
So something on a more national level too, I don't know if anybody's heard. Ford Motor Company has filed antitrust claims against Blue Cross Blue Shield in federal court for price fixing. We had the double-digit increases and, the executives are getting $1 million payouts, so I don't think an amicus brief would be the correct term, but I don't know if we could write a letter of support as a board to Ford Motor Company. We support their attempts to lower our rates with Blue Cross Blue Shield. That would help us, because we're a small school district. We don't have the money to take on Blue Cross Blue Shield, but a big company like Ford does. Something we could consider for future on a more national level. And that's all I got.
Anybody else? No. All right. Looks like we're adjourning the closed
Are you
session.
looking for a motion?
I am.
Do we need a motion to adjourn the closed session?
Yes. And then just like under or article, whatever number. I don't have that bookmark on me.
Peter.
Yeah.
You don't need to read the whole thing, like, just say
Yeah.
the article. Oh, really?
Yeah, you
I thought you would just say article.
Yeah, buddy.
or-
Yeah, ready.
Yeah.
Okay. Open Meeting Act exceptions, closed meetings. The board and board committees may meet in a closed meeting to consider the following subjects. The appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals who serve as independent contractors in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or specific volunteers of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee, a specific individual who serves as an independent contractor in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or a volunteer of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee of a public body that is subject to the Local Government Wage Increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this Act 5 ILCS 120-2C1. Number 2, collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. Number 3, the selection of a person to fill a public office
I
as the,
think, I don't think you don't need to read the
No,
whole
just number
thing, just the
Oh,
article.
just
that
one,
we're-
that's it?
Yeah,
Just one.
I got off easy.
yeah,
There we go.
because then the public doesn't know
Second
what we're
that motion.
discussing.
Thank you. We have a second from Brendan. Who made the motion? John?
I did.
And a second from Brendan. All in favor of going to closed session, say aye.
Nope.
Oh, it's roll
Oh,
call.
it's a roll call.
All right, John Lorenzen. Brendan Murphy,
Yes.
Peter Petrorini.
Yes.
Jillian Phelps. John Ruggles.
Yes.
Fred Stepstone,
Yes.
Lisa Brewster.
We're done screening.
Yeah, we're
See you guys. Thanks.
streaming because we're not gonna take